Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is informative, down to earth, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up your volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back to session 43, Fork in the Road.
Fork in the road.
You can only go one of two ways.
I know. Okay, interns. So this session is basically life after infidelity, whether to stay or whether to go. And if you are wondering, infidelity is one of those situations that can be very devastating for a marriage, a relationship. Mm-hmm. It causes, or it can cause rather, anxiety. It can cause anger. It can cause distrust and mistrust. And it's difficult for people to make that decision to stay or leave, to walk away or not. And actually, so this number surprised me, but I don't know why it surprised me. 70% of couples decide to stay. Mm-hmm. And reconcile their marriage. Mm-hmm. So I think I thought it would be more based on history, but less based on how people devalue. It seems like, let me not say it that way. It seems like people devalue marriage these days. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would have been less these days.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. But I also think people have a tendency to want status, and unfortunately, you know, marriage is still a status thing. It is. And so people are not willing to let that go. You know, it's kind of like that quote we were talking about the other day. Them being able to let go of the status, them being able to figure out, okay, what about the kids? What about this? What about that? Some people just be like, nah, I'm going to stay. Whether it's a healthy stay and they work on their stuff, or whether it's, you know, dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think some people also determined to stay base their decision based on what kind of affair it was.
Yeah, I would agree.
I can see that.
Well, like kind of like we talked in the last session, you know, if you're going with kind of like a stereotypical kind of thing, then some are easier to deal with than others. Again, this is based off stereotype and kind of what we've traditionally been seeing or taught, that, you know, on the woman's end, a sexual affair is, you know, easier, quote unquote, easier to get over versus an emotional one because of the level of commitment, the time, the energy that's involved in establishing another relationship with another person. And then on the male end, you know, an emotional affair, like, well, you just liked him, you know, he really just
you just liked him.
Like, you know, like, you really gonna leave me for that, you know, that kind of sentiment. So
you know, I would be interested in knowing the breakdown of like the 70%, if men are more likely to leave regardless because it was an affair, or if women are more likely to leave because, you know, of whatever kind of affair.
Yeah, well, we know we done seen both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I had to go with a gut without researching, you know, kind of into it, I would say men would leave.
That's what I was thinking too.
Before a woman would.
Yeah, because I think women, this is just opinion, this is not doctorish.
Gotta put them disclaimers out there.
Exactly. I think that women tend to be more emotional in their decision because, of course, if they decide to stay, well, either way, when it comes out, I'm still in love with my partner. So it's hard for me to walk away from that because I'm still in love with my partner, regardless of whether or not it's healthy, unhealthy, toxic or not. I'm still in love with my partner.
And I think that also goes, I agree. And I think it also kind of ties in what you were saying, Dr. Wall, about marriage having a certain status. And, you know, again, traditionally women are pushed to pick partners that are, you know, I don't want to say above them, but have a higher socio,
economic status.
socioeconomic status, that either have a higher social standing, so sometimes you can get caught up in that. If I leave this person, my life is going to change dramatically, and this person's life may not necessarily change as much because I've built a life with this person based off, kind of what we believed, wanted, and on my own, I don't have the ability to maintain that.
Especially when children are involved, because more than likely the children or child will go with the mom. And so it's like, I don't make enough money to be able to afford. So I that gives me another question. Like, do women stay because of being in love with their partner, or because they don't feel like they have another choice? And it could be both, but
I think it's both, but I think a lot of times it is the latter. They don't have another choice. It kind of, us talking about this, the first thing that popped up, and I know we've discussed this a little bit, is the whole respectability politics and the issue with Kevin Samuels recently and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of men believe that, they are the prize. I don't think nobody the prize. I think you find your person and y'all figure it out together. But,
you both become the prize.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of that still continues nowadays. And we're seeing that especially in the African American community with this particular individual show and how he demeans women. And a lot of the men who follow him believe the same way that he believes, and it's like a double standard. Like, well, the man got this, the man got that, so you better be a size 4 and you better not have no kids, you better not do this. It's just kind of, it's a very toxic way to look at relationships, because if it's only transactional, like you can get a prostitute for that, you know what I mean? Like, you ain't gotta pay for her on that level, because I mean, that's more expensive to have a wife than to have a prostitute,
right?
Just kind of piggybacking, not specifically on him, but just kind of that whole movement on the male and female side. I was watching a YouTube video from Julesy about this topic, and she made some very good points that when we talk about high value and what comes along with that we don't really have a good definition of what high value really means. There's no collective for that. So for some people, high value is going to be economic. It's going to be 6 figures, which even certain 6 figures is not technically high value in the number standpoint. But for some people it's going to be economic. For some people it's going to be their ability to influence people. For others it's going to be their family commitment as a parent. Everyone's idea of high value is going to be very different. So how are we measuring that? And then are we also looking at more historical context on, what is your real ability as a Black person to make influence in this world? Like truly, I agree with that. And I don't think a lot of people, I know we kind of sidebarring, but I don't think a lot of people in the African American community have sat down and really asked themselves, like, where am I getting this from? Because a lot of our things that we do are still steeped in slavery and slave mentality. And this is one of those things. Like, it's this always this need to go in this upward projection and beat this and have this. And you know what I mean? Like, we still on the struggle bus, because at the end of the day, like, this mirrors that lifestyle. Back when slavery was still, the woman is supposed to do this, the man is supposed to do this, and there has to be a hierarchy. And I'm not saying for my traditional people that do it in a healthy manner. I'm saying that very destructive manner where nobody has no rights and this one person has all the power. Like, that's not a healthy family structure.
And I think we have to begin to look at how we view marriage, like I have to tell my couples, you have to make your marriage your marriage. Like it does not need to mimic anyone else's marriage. Like if traditional, I guess, quote unquote, roles don't work for you in your marriage, then okay, don't do that.
And some, even to the extent of, some people don't believe in marriage, like legal marriage,
Right?
Not the committed relationship part, but legalizing for the sake of the government.
They believe in common law.
Yeah, and so that's a whole other set of situations or whatever, and that's fine. But I think you have to make sure you question yourself about what is that steeped in and what is that connected to, because sometimes we just be following stuff that don't make no dang sense. And it's like, you didn't think about that. Like, it's that in my sessions I tend to tell the story about the generations that cut the end off the pot roast.
I did too.
and all that kind of stuff. And then you find out later that the reason why Big Mama cut the ends off the pot roast because she didn't have no pot. She was having to put it in this little bitty container, but we got pots now.
Yeah.
Don't cut the end off. That's the good part.
That gives it the flavor.
So it's kind of like we just on this hamster wheel going nowhere,
right?
In the rat race. I know I'm using all these crazy analogies, but it's like you can't be this dumb and smart at the same time. Pick one.
Yeah, because I use the pot, and then I also use the example for those who watch Sex in the City when Mr. Big and Carrie got married, and she went to her old apartment for a couple of days to write and everything. She got back home. Mr. Big was like, "Hey, you remember when you went to your apartment and had those couple of days to yourself? I had the couple of days to myself. Maybe we should do that." I can't remember if he said every week or every month or something like that. And she was like, "Wait, you think we need that every month? We don't need that every month." She was like, "What would the girls say?" He was like, "I don't care what they would say. We got our own marriage. We don't have any children, and we can make our marriage what we want it." And I was like, that is so therapeutic.
I wonder how much influence a lot of this stuff has in, relationships today. It seems like a lot of this is unconscious. You're not necessarily walking around thinking about, slave times and how their influence and, the way we've progressed since, emancipation and how all of that kind of generational stuff impacts you today. We're not walking around thinking about that consciously, but I do wonder, how it shapes our expectations of the people that we're with. And then because they are not operating under those expectations, that then it leads to isolation and loneliness within these relationships. And then, of course, it makes it much easier for outside influences to come in, once those two feelings really kind of set in.
Yeah. I think we're all sleepwalking to a certain extent.
Yeah. I think it goes back to the quote that we read for the last session about we pay more attention to what we're not getting as opposed to what we have.
Yeah.
And I think that's in a lot of areas of our lives. Like we always talking about, "Oh, I can't wait till I get me a house." When you live in an apartment, "I can't wait till I get me a house. Oh my goodness, I can't wait till I get me a truck." Oh, you know what I mean? Like it's always, like you said, this rat race of trying to get something else and new and bigger and status.
Yeah. And then you done missed everything.
Yeah, you can't even enjoy where you are.
Very true.
And I also wonder too, I'm just wondering a lot of stuff, y'all. This topic is making me wonder a lot of things. I know.
Yeah, this is going to be a really thought bubble one today, guys.
I wonder if some people leave the marriage after infidelity because they think they're supposed to, because of the way it looked, or if some people stay because they think they were supposed to, because that's what Big Mama and them did back in the day.
I would have a resounding yes for both of those.
Yeah. And I think you got to know yourself. I think probably like a year or two ago, I posted something on Instagram about how I'm not going to be having no marriage to where my man got babies all over the place and I stay with him. But that's me. I know other women that's not really a big deal to them. And as long as, like we were talking about last time, as long as y'all are within y'all's contract, you cool. Like, it's nothing wrong with that. But if you just let anybody treat you any kind of way, then that's a problem, and that's got to do with self.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that it with, because I used to think the same thing as well. Well, I still think the same thing, but I thought way different. Like, because when I was younger, I was like, I don't want no man with no kids. No, that is not. And then, of course, because it's
Stuff
taken me,
changed.
right, because I've gotten older. So the older I've gotten, is less likely I'm going to have a man with no children.
Right.
I don't think I've ever in my adult years dated a man that didn't well, let me rephrase. I had like one. They've all had, and I mean, for me personally, I don't care, but we not having no outside babies.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we not doing.
Yeah. You got about 5 different baby mamas. Can't deal with that.
No, I don't care about that part either. Because I mean, at this point,
I don't want to have to deal with all them women.
no, because if I got to deal with them, then I'm not dealing with you.
Well, when I say
Make
deal
a
with
point.
them, meaning like they gonna, like the kids gonna be at the house with me. Somebody gonna have to come and pick them up or visit, or you know what I'm
It's
saying?
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, so I'm not doing that.
It is. So what do you ladies think are the things that influence, why a person would, let's start with stay.
Okay.
And of course, these are going to be individual specific, and we've given some kind of general ones now. But on what's the level I'm trying to think of? On a micro level, do you think that, a person decides to stay in the relationship because of insecurity with self, security for self, tradition, like you said, expectation because maybe of who that person is?
Yeah.
If this is a quote unquote high status individual, there may be an expectation that you're providing for other family members and you need to continue. When you think about the micro level, what do you guys think are some of the things that might just in general influence a person to stay?
Comfort, shoot.
And fear.
Because I know a lot of people, especially because, we see a lot of minorities. That's our main client base. And we have some first generation families that we see, and they're like, nah, they wasn't going to leave anything because they're the whole reason why I'm in this country, or, things of that nature.
Gotcha.
So it's like that comfort level, or they're like the alternative is more scary than what I'm currently going through. Like, I know this demon.
And I would say fear because for a lot of people, going back to being single is scarier.
It's a hot mess in these streets.
And like you said, at least I know this situation and maybe we can work it out and it change, as opposed to me leaving the situation, getting back out here, not knowing what I'm getting ready to get into because I got single friends and they still the struggle is real. And it's like, yeah.
And everybody don't want to start over.
So that kind of devil I know is, I can't remember that quote. The devil I know is better than the one I don't. It's something like that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, yes, that quote is very prevalent.
Yeah, I think both of those things are huge influences. And I almost think that the combination of those two may be even more telling.
And I think it's easier to stay because trying to get a divorce is like, oh my, you got to separate stuff. I mean, like
it's not common knowledge like that. This is knowledge is power.
It is.
And so you got to think, this is not something that was talked about. It's very taboo still in this day and age to get a divorce or to separate. That's a good man. That's a good woman. Don't be you need to suck that up. You probably the problem. So, it's all of that still going on. And so then on top of that, you don't have the knowledge. You don't know, okay, I can get divorced without hiring anybody. I can literally just file paperwork and pay the court. Like most, not that I'm advising nobody listening, but it ain't that difficult. And then you wait like 30 to 90 days, depending on your state, and it's easy. Now, if you got assets, it ain't gonna be easy, but that's
children
well, they asset. But I think that's a major thing. Like a lot of people have put themselves in a position to be powerless, and they will continue to do that.
Wow, that's deep. To be powerless.
I want us to share power.
That's the goal.
I can't, that go into a whole nother set of talks, but I can't. I don't like it.
Makes me uncomfy.
Wow. That's very interesting. I was just kind of sitting here thinking, like, as an individual, if you, once you realize that you've, been cheated on, the whirlwind that kind of really happens for that individual, I don't know. With taboo, this is where that kind of comes into mind for me. This is not something that, societally we really talk about a whole lot.
No.
We don't talk about the emotional impact that that's going to have on having to make either one of those decisions, because they're both hard in their own way. Yeah. And the result after the decision is made is going to be difficult either way. Because nobody gets off scot-free on either decision.
Nothing. We don't talk about none of the hard stuff. Like when you think about getting married, people talk about the wedding. They don't talk about the marriage. When you think about getting a divorce, they say, okay, I filed for divorce, or I'm a divorcee, but there's not a whole bunch about like what that looks like. It's no different than, there's been a rise in, women related issues and women talking about miscarriages and different things like that, and how that's such a hard struggle. Like we don't talk about the things that are hard because we want it to look nice,
and we don't want nobody in our business.
Yes.
But I think one of the emotional symptoms that people have to think about after cheating is, or after cheating has been introduced into the relationship, is the betrayal.
And that's hard.
It is.
Yeah.
Because once you've been betrayed, I know we've talked about this before with our clients and stuff. Once you've been betrayed, and if you decide to stay, you won't be the same again.
No. And the person who has betrayed you has to realize that as well. This is a different marriage. Before knowing and then after knowing. And you're going to have to, both of y'all going to have to take that.
Yeah. The example I usually give clients that I see that are dealing with, any type of infidelity is like you have a glass vase. So that's the original status of your relationship. So let's say, then some sort of infidelity or betrayal of some sort takes place. You drop that vase and it's now broken and shattered into all these pieces. You can take your super glue and, put it back together in its original shape.
Gorilla. If you want.
I mean, if you want that stronghold. You can glue it back together, but it will never look the way that it did originally. There are now cracks. There are some missing pieces, and it still may function. It still may hold water and hold flowers, but it's never going to look like it did in the original state.
No. And you have to learn to find the beauty in the breaks.
Yeah.
The cracks. And a lot of times that is the downfall of repairing the relationship. I just want to go back the way it was. It ain't the way it was.
Those two people don't exist anymore.
No, they don't.
And if you're, and we would caution, if you stay, don't stay because of memories.
Oh gosh, no.
Because that person's not coming back. Now, that's not to say that person can't improve and become a different or better version of themselves. Yes. So we're not saying that, but don't stay because of memories of who you thought they were, because that man/woman is not there anymore.
Yeah. But I have heard, I cannot remember, and I should have looked it up before today, but I read something, I think it was a book or something, where this woman was having an affair, and her husband didn't know, but I think the man that she had an affair with came to her home. So she saw him in like the driveway and like ran out there like, what are you doing? And I think she convinced him to like leave or something like that, but it forced her to tell her husband about it. Mm-hmm. Well, she said that having the affair improved their marriage because of, you know, everything that they had to go through in between to get the marriage back to something functional.
And I can understand that, but I just don't feel like I want to go through all that to get to that point. I tell a lot of my couples, like, why don't y'all set up some type of couples retreat? And it don't have to be other people, but some type of couples retreat that you do every year. It don't have to be around your anniversary because that's normally celebration time, but some people do it then, where y'all are doing some hardcore introspection. You're paying attention to what you need, what you want. If you want to do it the month of, you know, your wedding anniversary or your get together anniversary or whatever, then that's when you do that, so that you're always taking stock of what's going good and what ain't, and so you can correct it.
So I have three things that I tell my clients. One, plan to have difficult conversations, like, you know, if it's going to be once a week at 8:00 on Thursday, or, you know, how many every day you need it. Then the other thing for like a daily check-in, like to do highs and lows, like one positive thing, one negative thing, and y'all can do as many as you want to. I'm just saying at least. And the other one is what is my third one? I always forget my third one. Oh, likes and dislikes. So make sure you are up on, you know, talking about the likes and dislikes that you have about the other person. And then my dad, before my husband and I got married, he was telling my husband, like, every now and again I have to do report card checks with my wife. I check in, how am I doing, baby? Like, is it something I need to be doing, something I don't need to be doing? And so my husband now he's taken on that. He's asked me a couple of times, like, how am I doing? Like, everything good? And so I've gotten into the habit of asking him, are you happy? What's going on? Is there anything that needs to change? Are we good? You know? And so we can have those conversations, and we can make room to have those conversations and set the environment.
Yeah, because stuff don't just happen.
Right.
Yeah, I know that irritates me. Just want it to happen naturally. He should know. He should know what?
He's inner not workings. A psychic.
That don't even work. So I like that. I think that's a good tool to have. And I think you just have to make sure you and your partner are receptive to that sort of thing, because it ain't gonna feel good all the time to have those types of talks. I also suggest that my clients don't have those talks in their bedroom.
Oh yeah,
because then you're gonna be like, I remember that time that joker said X, Y, and Z, and then you done messed up your bedroom. So
the vibe.
Yeah. So, you know, you may need to have that in the office or the office area, you know, because we talking business. Your marriage is a business, and you need to make sure that you're treating it as such. There are quotas that need to be met. There are expectations, you know, there are sometimes some firing needs to occur. And I don't mean divorce. I mean, like,
fire some behaviors,
you know. So if you treat it that way, it can also help you get some distance emotionally from what is going on, instead of you being so enmeshed and engrossed in one another that you can't really, you know, fix problems.
Yeah. And you know, to kind of add on, you definitely have to take time to really assess you.
Yes.
You know, it's not all just about you checking in with each other, which of course those are essential, but you also got to take time away to just check you, you know, see where you at, what you want, where, you know, what you believe, how you've changed, you know, all of those things are very important, because then when you go and have these types of conversations, you're not just going in blind. You know, because if you go in and you don't have any kind of real idea of where you're going, those type of conversations can derail and go to the left very quickly. You know, as soon as emotions run high, or you say something that that triggers me, that I may be thinking about myself, or something that I think is untrue about what you said, you know, it can escalate to something that neither one of you wanted it to escalate to.
Yeah.
I think also something that's important is knowing the difference between responsibility, fault, and ownership.
Mm.
Because all of those things need to take place after a betrayal or infidelity or whatever. And we've talked about, responsibility and fault before, but just in case y'all forgot, responsibility is the ownership part of it, and both of y'all are owning the things that you did wrong. And then fault is the person that caused the betrayal. Not cause you to cause the betrayal, because then that's projecting and blaming, because Lord, now if y'all were having a regular conversation, then yes, that it would be that person's fault, but not when you done betrayed, because that's a different you leveled up in the wrong way.
Yes. Well, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last session about, reasons and explanations versus justifications.
Yeah.
See how they all tie together?
All of them.
Okay. So then, flip side, things that make people leave. So we've kind of talked about, some of the micro reasons that make people stay. What do you ladies see, or what have you heard over the years, as some of the reasons that make people leave?
I would say my most recent one that I've had was that they just couldn't take being manipulated anymore. And
Yeah. So like a serial cheater.
Yeah.
Being fed up. It was one of their things, like what I was saying, it's one of your things that you ain't gonna be able to get over.
And that, to add on to what Dr. Wild just said, that's for people who have a difficult time not forgiving a lot of times. And even if you are a person that can forgive, that doesn't mean that you're going to stay in the marriage. But for those people who definitely know you have a difficult time forgiving, that your decision may need to be to leave, because the marriage is going to be unhappy.
Something I ask my clients that deal with infidelity is, your hurt too big? Sometimes, and we've said this before, not everything is fixable. Sometimes the hurt that you feel is just too great. The weight is too much. And it's okay to acknowledge that for yourself, but that may mean you have to make a difficult decision for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes if you're one of those people who need to walk away and you stay, you're going to make your life miserable. You're going to make their life miserable. And instead of you having a mindset and a heart to reconcile, it's going to be more vindictive, trying to get back at, things of that nature. So you have to know you have to pay attention to you.
Yep. Wake up on a Snapped episode.
Yeah.
Because that show exists for a reason.
You can't, like we've said before, you cannot keep pushing people and expect them to not one day just lose it. And if you were, and as you should be, somebody that was very valuable to that person and you betray them, it's just, sometimes it ain't no coming back from that. It really ain't. Even if like y'all said, even if the person stays, like they're never the same. It's a very defeated feeling in the relationship.
Yeah. And that kind of throws back to what I was, what Dr. Jones-Hines was saying a little bit earlier, that you're just not the same person afterward, whether you stay or whether you go. That there's something fundamentally now different about the betrayed partner, especially if this person has viewed you in a very positive, healthy light for them. We have this tendency to put our partners up on pedestals sometimes. And then something like this occurs and it really does shake your view of who they are.
They're no longer innocent.
Right. It's not just kind of like who they are to you, but just like who they are. And it changes you in ways that you don't anticipate. You, like you were saying, that defeated feeling, powerlessness, confusion. I mean, there's so many different things, anguish, pain, those are things that really take a long time to sort through. And I don't really believe when people, if you decide to stay or go, because there's still a healing process with going, like it can take a couple of years to really sort yourself out and figure like, okay, can I trust this individual again? If you decide to stay, can I trust this individual again? Have I seen enough change in behavior to start reestablishing trust? Because blind trust happens one time. That's it. You don't get blind trust ever again.
Never.
And one of the things with the trust that I always tell my couples is that don't start doing things that's not a part of your personality.
No.
Because if you're not one of those people, and I'm just going to use the man because I'm a woman. If you're not a man that buy flowers, that if that's not your personality, don't start doing that, because as soon as it stops, she's going to think something's changed and something's wrong.
Yeah.
So the only way you'll be able to build trust is, one, to just be you and be consistent with being you. And then after that, it's going to, see, the thing is, both parties have to go through a healing process and a process. But once I forgot the three.
Affair partner is the extra person.
Okay.
Betrayed partner is the one that got cheated on. Involved partner is the one that cheated.
Okay. So once the involved person has apologized, they're, going through the process of, if y'all decide to go to therapy and they're working through that, they've done their part of what they can do to help you as the betrayed person. Now it's up to you to do your part of whether or not you're going to heal or not. Because in my research, when I saw the 70%, they said that 70% stay, but some, I can't remember the percentage, but some leave at like 5 years because they just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit. It can take a couple of years, like for you to even, wrap your mind around what really has happened, because the initial stages after an affair or cheating has come to light, there's a fever that happens with the person that has been betrayed. Yeah. And in that fever, of course, I'm not talking about a physical fever, but in more of a fervor, let me say that. They are hyper vigilant. They want to know everything. They're double checking everything you've ever said, cross-examining. Well, when you said you were going to your homeboy's house on Memorial Day, but then you didn't come home till like 9 the next morning, that's not your typical thing. So were you really out with some, there's a lot of anxiety that this person is now replaying events and trying to go back and see, well, when did this really start? So as the involved partner, as your person is trying to get through that, you got to understand that you're going to be questioned incessantly in the beginning stages of, if you guys decide to reconcile. You're going to get lots of questions and a lot of intense roller coastery emotions. One day they're going to seem like they're all in love with you and everything's good, and then 2 days later, the person's trying to bite your head off and you're like, well, what in the world? We were just good 2 days ago. And it's like, something can trigger that person. It could be you are watching some movie and that person says something and it's like, oh dang, that sound like what you said. I mean, it could be so many different things. The other responsibility, kind of like what Dr. Jones-Hines was saying, is the betrayed partner also has to take responsibility. Don't ask questions that you're not ready to get the answer to.
Girl,
so if you
say that part one more time.
Don't ask questions you are not prepared to get the answer to.
And some questions you don't need to ask.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
How many times? Was it over here? Was it over there? Did she like this? Did he like it?
Is she better than me?
You need to calm down.
Yeah.
And just sit for a second and really figure out what questions are important to either keeping this relationship or ending this relationship. Because that spiral ain't no joke.
Yeah, no. You have to do. You may want to do that spiral with your therapist, so that they can help you come out of it.
Yes.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's certain tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM.
And just to add to the question that you asked originally about
reasons to go.
Another reason I've heard too is that they didn't believe that they would be able to meet the need that caused them to cheat in the first place. So let's just say, for example, sex. And I'm going to use he again because I'm a woman. So if his sex drive is higher than your sex drive, and the reason why he cheated is because he said that y'all weren't having sex or whatever, or you weren't having sex as much as he wanted. Well, if you don't think you're going to be able to increase that, then it's going to happen. In her mind, it may happen again.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so then what do I do?
Yeah. That's when those real conversations need to be happening, because I have found many times the reason why the my brain just went blank, the included person involved somewhat the involved person ends up cheating is because of X, Y, and Z, but then they don't realize the reason why the betrayed partner was not dealing with them in that area is because they was trash. And they was like, let me save your ego and let me not say nothing, which is not healthy either. And then it just breaks down whatever that area is, whether it's cooking, whether it's sex, whether it's, dates,
cleaning,
whatever.
finances.
All of that.
Wow. That's interesting.
I'm like, we not saving no ego in this house.
Because there's no room for ego.
No.
And, because my husband will tell me in a minute, because I'm trying to be vegan. He'll tell me in a minute, that don't even look right. I'm not eating that.
Yeah.
It be like that.
But what can I say? I can't get upset by it. I mean, okay. I just need to make sure I cook what you like to look at.
That's true. Yeah, I do think I agree with both of you ladies, that it really is. This goes back to what we were just saying a minute ago about assessing, and taking checks and balances and having rules of engagement for your relationships. That, an emotion is just an emotion. There's nothing inherently good about it. There's nothing inherently bad about it. But how you respond to it is what makes them healthy or unhealthy. So it can be difficult to check that, especially if it's something that you don't want to feel. But if you can keep that in check, that you can have much more productive conversations.
But see, that's where the self-reflection comes in. You have to, in order to check it, like you were saying, Dr. Strickland, in order to check it, you have to understand, okay, is this, okay, it may be rational for me to feel this way, but I needed to know this information because I'm just used cooking. Because if I didn't know that he didn't like it, he just eating it, like, that's not healthy for him.
Nope. And I'm running with a story that's not true.
Right.
Yeah.
We're very good at filling our own heads with stuff. We developing our own storylines. That's something I say to my clients all the time. Okay, so are you just running with your own story? Because you took a chunk of information and then filled in a bunch of gaps because you either didn't go back and verify and clarify that information, or you just wanted, even if they told you everything, you just wanted to believe what you wanted to believe, or if you just don't believe them because you don't trust this person. There's all kinds of reasons why people, take what's in their head and just run with it. And, it goes back to, like you were saying, self-reflection on, are you doing that? And then do you even know that you're doing that?
Yeah. It reminds me of the clients that you and I share. And I just be looking at them through the screen. Like, here we go. Another session of not awareness. Okay.
Not awareness.
Yeah. And that's funny. You know, I know this is a complete sidebar, just kind of thinking about awareness. We don't learn how to be aware,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and in some ways, and this may be just a personal thing, I think that sometimes awareness is only because of the field, like for myself, because of the field that I'm in. You know, it has forced me to look at things in a different way, you know, speaking with so many different people about different experiences that they have, and having to figure out how to assist these individuals with what they are experiencing has forced me to look at myself in some different ways, especially if they are going through or dealing with things that are very similar that may be happening in my life. But I just think in a general sense, like we talked about in the discernment and critical thinking session, you know, we're getting further and further away from like social problem solving. We're getting very good at like technical problem solving and, you know, kind of cyber related things,
And
but we're
impulsive decision making.
but we're getting away from like the social aspect of that. So a lot of people just don't even know that they're not self-aware.
Nor do they care.
That too.
Wow. And I think some of this is learned as well, because we have a society that's having children that's not teaching about social self-awareness, emotional intelligence, effective communication, having learning how to have difficult conversations. We didn't necessarily learn it either, but like you said, because of our field, we've learned it and now are having to teach it. But I don't think society as a whole, it doesn't even matter the generation. I don't think any of us learned
Conflict resolution.
It's so beautiful that, you know, through social media, when you get to see how parents parent their young children, and they're like, well, what are you feeling? Why are you crying? What made you sad today? I'm like,
Yeah, I've
so
seen some of
bomb.
those.
I have to.
because, you know, that's just, let me ask a grown up, why are you crying? He did this to me, but why are you crying? Like, what is triggering that within you, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I think, you know my feeling about the question why. Because it's a loaded question, unintentionally. A lot of times, I think why is unintentionally loaded, but it comes with so much depth. You know, we've talked about why with the purposes of closure. So this is not to say that the question why is bad or useless, but if you're going to ask a question that uses those three letters, you got to be ready to dive deep into and take it down to the end. Like who was saying, play the tape out. Like you have to play that tape out internally. You know, if you're going to say, well, why am I doing this? Like that's a lot. You know, it's not you're not going to get that in 5 minutes.
And I think that's for that why question to self needs to be for all involved,
Involved.
the betrayal and
the affair partner.
yes.
Yeah.
Why did I decide to allow myself to be attached to an emotionally unavailable person?
yeah, because we've seen those clients too that are in a relationship with somebody who was committed to other. And I'd be like, okay, well, you cool with being the side? Because you're not the entree. Like, are you cool with that?
Yeah.
And if the person says yes, I say, okay, well, why? Well, don't be judging me. I said, I'm not judging you. We're trying to understand why that you want to do this. So that when you continue to pick this person, you pick healthier. You pick people who are maybe polyamorous versus people who are deceptive and lying to the person that they are committed to.
Or that they say they're committed to.
That part.
That part. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is hard. I remember one time I was running a group and I was telling them about one of the classes I had one of the classes one of my friends had in college. And their part of their final was, it was some sort of philosophy class. I don't know what type it was, but that's all the final was. So the professor had handed out the thing and they just wrote why like on the paper. And they were talking about how like people were writing like pages and pages and pages of stuff, and they were just sitting there like, I don't know what to write. Like, how in the world y'all, it just say why on here, and y'all got like pages of stuff that y'all are writing. So
because,
and that's what they wrote. That's what they wrote was because. But then I got a 50 on the final, because the professor said that the quote unquote correct response was why not. So yes, and I think you can make arguments either way, because
I can't stand professors like that.
Unless we in philosophy.
Well, we're not gonna.
It was.
It was okay.
It was. Yeah.
I was about to say we're not gonna do this.
Yeah. No, it was.
Or English, maybe.
Now I don't know what type of philosophy class it was. So if it was like Roman or Greek or I don't know all that kind of detail. But what I remembered from that is when I did that group, I did something very similar, by writing that question on the dry erase board. So luckily this was a very unique group of adolescents at this particular time that I was running group. So this actually worked for them. They're very quirky, kind of artsy, fartsy kind of kids. And some high intelligence kids as well. So it's a little just easier to do this with those types of individuals. So I just wrote the question why on there and just asked them, when you see this question, what are the first things that come to mind for you? If you hear why, what's the first feeling you think you feel? What's the first thought that comes to mind? And, once somebody kind of spoke up, one of the first kids I remember, it was very interesting. They said fear. That was the first thing that came to mind when they hear the question why. So I was like, okay, so what is the fear? And they were saying like, I don't know what to answer. I may not necessarily know. I may not know why. And I'm afraid about if I give you the wrong answer, what that's going to result in. Or if, and then the other side of the fear, it wasn't this person, but somebody else said that their fear was that about giving you an answer, even if it's correct, that it exposes me. So I do think that when we talk about if you've experienced any type of affair or betrayal in your relationship and you're trying to dive into why, you also have to look at what feelings are generated for you internally by asking that question, because that can block you from being able to really dive deep and assess what the why actually is.
Yeah.
That's
philosophical.
Thought bubble. Told y'all it was thought bubble episode today.
So when, in y'all's opinion, like, what would be a reason for you to stay and what would be a reason for you to go personally?
I used to be one of those people that say, child, he cheat, I am gone. I am never gonna get you. Yeah, that's stupid.
I was in that camp at one point too. And I've slowly over the years transitioned to anybody can do anything once. I'm not saying that is acceptable.
No, I got what you're saying.
But anything can happen once. If the situations and everything aligns for that to happen.
Yeah.
I think reasons to leave, of course, would be serial cheating. For me, that's a no-brainer.
Gotcha.
If it's happened once and then it happens again, okay, obviously something from the first time didn't get learned. This is for me. Something from the first time didn't get learned, so there's really no point in staying after that. I think especially depending upon who it was with. If this was somebody that was close to me or someone that I knew.
Make a difference. That show make a difference.
Because now I've been betrayed by two people. I think that would influence whether I was going to go. And if I'm going to be real, if I was not in a position to take care of myself.
Okay.
That would be one of my reasons to stay.
Okay.
I think also staying is, does this person show remorse? Do they have a genuine interest in trying to address the issues that took place for that to happen? And how invested am I in the relationship? So again, there's a storm of things that happens that leads to these types of behaviors. So am I even in a space that even though they did this, am I even in a space where I even want to be there or not? And if I am, of course, then I would stay. And then if I wasn't, then I would go.
Them good ones.
I would have to say, for me staying, for me to stay is real hard for me because I'm already not a person that trusts easily anyway. And you betray me by cheating. For me, that's I mean, because now that I'm married, I definitely have to rethink that automatic like leave. Because the situations may just not turn out that way. Yeah, be that easy, especially because you've invested. So I think for me to stay, I think it would have to be one, like you were saying, you know, could I actually take care of myself or whatever now that I've created this life with this person? Am I invested in reconciling the marriage? And when I say invest, like, can I actually forgive him? Because if I can't, I can be honest, he gonna have hell. And I think maybe another one, because I'm definitely a feeler when it comes to relationships. So I would definitely have to say I would probably stay because I'm still in love with him.
Gotcha.
For me to leave, if I feel like he's no longer, I can't say in love with me because you don't feel in love with your partner every day. But if I don't feel like he has an invested interest in the marriage anymore, I can't do it. The serial cheater, first of all, after the first time, I'm done. Like if you do it again, now that I will honestly say I'm getting the hell out of there. Yeah. Because I can't do that no more. Because at that point, you're now affecting my sense of security. And security in space and internal security. Like I'm becoming insecure now. I think that may be it.
Okay. I would say for myself, when I think about staying, mine is a more internal thing. Can I repair my heart enough to be with this person? Because infidelity for me is in an area of a childhood wound of growing up not with a great relationship with my father and being abandoned by him. So that's like a whole other level, because I'm gonna be questioning myself, like, what did I not see to be able to protect myself better and have my boundaries in the correct spot? Of course, not blaming myself, but just I'm a very introspective person. And so if I'm not able to heal my heart in that relationship, then I'm not going to be able to stay with that person. Because I don't care about none of the other stuff. I'm just like, I'll be destitute. I live in my car. Y'all know. I done had this conversation with y'all before. I will live in my storage unit. That's just where my mind goes. But because that's such a huge wound that I take so much intentional effort, conscious effort to make sure I'm healed in, and then to be hurt in that area, it's like the ultimate betrayal because of, childhood stuff. And if y'all remember, my top 3 things in a relationship is consistency, stability, and integrity. And so you just done blew the roof off.
All 3 of them.
Yeah. Now for me to go just off the bat would probably be the continual cheating. Because I know that a lot of men that I have dated have said this about me, and they were like, man, I wish I would have just talked to you, because we probably could have figured it out. Because I'm very much like, okay, well, let's do that then. Or y'all know this, like, I'm very laid back. It's not a lot of things that I'm opposed to, or like we can't figure out some type of solution. So if our relationship is ending, it's because you did not want to talk about it. And you did not want to choose other options. I don't like my choices being taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I take my own choices away, that's different,
Right.
you know. But I don't want you taking it away, and so that would be important to me. Also, how close of a relationship to me was the individual that you cheated with, because if it's, you know, my mama, you know, not that my mom would ever do that because my mom is crazy, but then it's a no. It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't be able to get over that, and that's, like you said, that's multiple people that now that I have to heal from. And then if they hold it over my head, because what you're not gonna do is flip this on me. And I'm
Didn't
saying,
think about that one.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
didn't
saying
either.
that's also rooted in my childhood wound of seeing certain things growing up, and ownership not being taken. I it's just certain, it makes my flesh crawl, and so I know that would be a struggle.
Yeah.
I want
makes
to
a lot of
add
sense.
to as well.
I'm like, wait a minute.
It's
Hold
for
up.
me to
maybe-
leave.
Do I need to change mine?
I know, right? I do want to add a couple of those, but to leave, if there was a child,
I didn't think
a
about
baby, and then what was my other one?
that. Yeah, because that would be a first, even on the first time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
It takes such a strong
That's
person.
a very consistent reminder, like
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
can't
didn't,
remember.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I didn't either until as soon as she started saying the childhood thing, I was like, oh wait, yeah, a child.
And what was the other one?
I can't remember.
Oh, sorry.
That would be a hard one, and I don't know if I would be able to do it in the moment. It would be one of those things like, maybe we could get back together in about 20 years when we ain't got nobody else and we old and decrepit. But even then, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, that takes a very,
That takes a different turn.
yeah.
It do. And I would never want to mistreat that child.
right.
Absolutely.
And so that probably would be my reason not to stay, because I'm not going to cause a baby to have no trauma like that.
Because they did not ask
Nope.
for this situation.
Yeah, cause see, then my thing is, you also had unprotected sex, and I just can't do that. Cause
You done messed up my good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many layers.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's layers.
yeah,
But all in all, this is all about just taking time to really consider your options. There is nothing, it's an individualized choice. There's nothing inherently wrong with staying, and there's nothing inherently wrong with leaving. You have to look at your situation, what you want, what you need, and what you see for yourself and your relationship, and whether or not either one of those decisions is going to be for you. You got to look at the impact of the current, the impact of the future, and if you can make changes together, so if you decide to stay, and then if you decide to go, are you prepared and ready to do the introspective work to figure out what went, I even hate saying what went wrong, but like, where were some of the flaws in my relationship, and how can I improve myself so that I don't fall into the same trap or hold the next person accountable for the past person's behavior.
No bag ladies over here.
yeah.
Nope.
And you also have to remember that either decision, you're gonna have to do some work. It's in its stages to healing, and you're not just gonna be like, oh, if I leave him or her, then I'll be healed, or if I stay, I'll feel better. No. It's not that.
No.
We wish, but it ain't.
Yeah. There's not too many things on this world that are instantaneous.
That is
Other than pregnancy.
Well, even that takes people.
It takes people, but I'm saying as soon as you're pregnant, you ain't a little pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean.
you all the way
yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's no yes or no. I mean, no, there's no maybes.
Yeah.
It's either yes or no. Not too many black and white things in the world. Okay, so we typically end off with a quote, and this week's is brought to you by Anirban Bose. The desire to love always exceeds the desire to be loved by someone, and that's exactly why we end up loving the person who who doesn't deserve that love.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at The Recycled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.